Hello, good day. Hope everyone's doing all right. And sorry, getting this to you a little late before the weekend, but trying to finish up some stuff here at school just to make sure we're ready for next week and some of the things that are coming up with some of the decisions that we have to make. But we're getting into lesson 8. And remember, this is not due until Monday, so you don't have to stress about trying to get it done today. You can wait till Monday. There will not be a new lesson come out until Tuesday anyway. So week 3, lesson 8, and we're dealing with the judicial branch still. And we've been talking about courts, different types of law, interpretations of the Constitution, what the purpose of the courts are. And so now what we're going to get to is basically the U.S. court system and how it works, the hierarchy of it. So if you look at this slide here is the federal court system. And I know normal, as you look at this, you're probably thinking, oh my word, more boxes, more lines, more things that we have to draw. But it's really important that you understand how things flow through the court system. So when a case is brought in and it's not handled according to what they think it should be, what's the process or what's the flow to get it up to the Supreme Court? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a couple of minutes basically to draw this down, because what you need to do is you need to put this in your notes and then basically draw out each one of these. And then what we're going to do is go in the rest of your notes and outline the different criteria or aspects of each of these different courts. So you can take a couple minutes now, draw this out, and you'll notice here, okay, and then while you're drawing this out, I'll probably just talk if that's okay. It's divided into 2 different types of courts. So you have constitutional courts, and this goes back to what we originally talked about as far as judicial review, that Article 3 of the Constitution basically sets up the courts, but it also says that Congress can set up inferior courts. So this is the type of court system that Congress has basically set up through to support the judicial system, okay? And then you'll notice on the other side there are legislative courts, and these are courts that were issued later on through a legislative act to be able to supply support to the judicial branch to be able to meet the demand that's on them. All right? And then at the top, you will basically see United States Constitution. So the highest law in the land, and we've talked about this, Article 6 of the Constitution, the Constitution itself, and then the federal laws are the highest laws in the land. So the authority of the Supreme Court, as I mentioned in the courtroom yesterday, the seal of the United States. So any federal court that you go into, the seal of the United States of America is over there, letting you know that the Constitution as well as the federal laws are the ones that have the highest authority over that bench, over that seat of authority. Okay? And then you'll notice the Supreme Court, and then below that, the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit, 12 Court of Appeals, and then you have a military branch, and then you have the things coming out of the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit, and then 12 Courts of Appeals. So we're going to spend most of our time talking about the 12 Court of Appeals and the types of cases that come out of that. All right, so take a couple minutes and basically draw this out, and then we'll start back. Okay, now that you've got that written all down, we're going to start with our first type. So what you're going to do is you can refer this one, the district courts, which is on the bottom left-hand side of your chart. You can refer back to where this district court fits in, okay? So we're going to take time and basically give you particulars about most of the courts. We're not going to talk about all of them, but most of them. And so the first one, we're going to look there, okay? And you can refer these notes back to that box. I don't want you to have to take all these notes under that box. But anyway, district courts. Okay. You'll notice that 80% of all federal cases heard on this level, most end up on this level. So in other words, most of the cases that come into the federal system start here. And then they end here. They don't go any further. Because once they make this decision here, there's the next one, which is up above that, and we'll get to that a little bit later. So there are 94 what we call district courts throughout the United States. So you will know that there's one per state, at least. So our district court is called District of Hawaii. So our federal district is the District of Hawaii. So every state has one, but then there are states with so many people, the population is so big, like California, New York, Florida, Pennsylvania, states like that, that they have several district courts within there, okay? So most of them end up on this level. Next one, this is the primary trial court of the federal system. So grand jury and petite type of trials, all right, that they have. And so you'll notice here, courts of original jurisdiction, except for cases that are from state courts dealing with judicial review. So anytime there's a federal crime committed, or like even if you go and you get a ticket up in the national park and you have to go to federal court, you go to the district court in Honolulu. So you don't do that here. You have to go to Honolulu to do that. All right. And those are cases of original jurisdiction. It was here in the state of Hawaii, so it's taken care of there. Okay. So they have original jurisdiction because it was that. So if there's a state crime or something that people want to challenge that the state did, and then it comes from the state court, and then it goes to the district court for a retrial or an appeal type process, okay, then the state has original jurisdiction and it becomes concurrent, okay? So this is a court of original jurisdiction. And then next, the only federal court to use grand juries. Remember, we talked about grand juries meet together, okay, and they determine if there's enough evidence to actually arraign someone or bring charges against someone, all right? And they also have petite juries, which are the 6 to 12 people that go into criminal or civil cases, and they're actually trial by your peers, okay? So this is the only court in the federal system that actually does this. All right, and then above this, you have the 12 Court of Appeals. So if a decision comes out of the district courts and people want to appeal it, the next place that it goes is to the Court of Appeals. All right, this never has original jurisdiction. The case always comes from someplace else, and it usually, most of the time, comes from the district court. And Hawaii's Court of Appeals, one of the 12, is actually in San Francisco, and we're in the Ninth Circuit. All right, and then you'll notice here that this was created in 1891 to handle the volume of cases being appealed to the Supreme Court each year. So there's 45,000 plus cases coming to the Supreme Court each year. There is no way that the people in the Supreme Court can actually handle this volume of cases each year. So you have a group in each of these Court of Appeals, these 12 different Court of Appeals throughout the United States. And in each one of these Court of Appeals basically acts. So there's one justice of the Supreme Court who presides over each one. And Elena Kagan, all right, presides over the Ninth. So she is our Supreme Court Justice, Associate Justice, that presides over the Ninth District. All right, they hold no trials. They hear no testimony. So there's not an actual trial that goes on. It's a bunch of offices. And basically, they only determine through reading through all the dialogue and the court transcripts that come out that are sent to them in a challenge. They only go through those and they determine if the law was broken, or they went off course, or they broke procedure, or there was an error somewhere in the case. Then the case will go on. If this group determines after it has been appealed If this group determines that, hey, there is no problems with this case, what the judges did in the lower courts is fine, it stops here. Cannot go any further. All right? You would have to get it retried in the original jurisdiction for it to get back to the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals will not hear it again. So that basically ends it right there. Now, the one reason why each of the justices oversee these is because there could be cases that become of interest and there is something constitutional in there that they want to deal with. The judge can actually take that case from the Court of Appeals and bring it to the Supreme Court. The justices and the people who work in that building or in that each one of those different circuits can basically say and agree together, this case is of special interest. It needs to have a final decision on it. We need to make sure it's handled properly, so we're going to send it up to the Supreme Court. So that could be decided there. But with this Court of Appeals, it stops. And then it's dead in the water unless you try to bring it up through another vein to the Court of Appeals. So that's the 12 Court of Appeals. And then you have the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit. That's more into the middle. You'll see there, and there's a whole bunch of different things coming out of here. And this court hears all kinds of cases from all types of courts dealing with patents, trademarks, and copyrights. So anything that comes into here that deals with these things is shifted over to the Court of Appeals. So it doesn't go to the district courts. It doesn't go to the 12 Court of Appeals. It goes to the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit. And I know that's kind of confusing, but it's very specific here because you got judges and justices and lawyers and everything studying in a particular field of law dealing with patents, trademarks, and copyrights. So you want to make sure that those people are able to discuss things that they know about. And so you need people who are knowledgeable in these fields. And that's the Court of Appeals for the Federal Court. All right, or Federal Circuit. So we will pick up here next week with more of these different courts. They want to overwhelm you today. And then we'll be ready for our test next Friday. We have 2 more lessons next week to finish off the court system, talking about the judges and things. And then we'll be taking our test. All right? Thank you. God bless. And we'll see you next time.